You deserve my praise. Thank you, Jesus. Adoration and glory. It belongs.
Never actually spoken to the group during the sermon part. I always tell y'all something from time to time, what's going on with the hymns. Brenda just brought the first hymn that she said was There's Within My Heart a Melody, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. That song, that's a hymn that we sang a lot of times, and the hymn writers, Luther B. Bridgers. Luther came home one night, and to his dismay, his house had burnt down, his wife and his children had burned in the house. And with the loss of his wife, the loss of his children, he sat down with pen and pencil and wrote the words, the song that Brenda just gave us, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Most of the hymns have a story behind them. The last 5 weeks, Harvey's been bringing us some wonderful messages on how we should build our church, building the church. And there are a lot of things that he said in 5 weeks. Last week, he gave us a culmination of building a strong church. My mother, who's still living, I'm one of the fortunate ones, is 86, and she tells me all the time still, because I'm still her child, that you should give people their flowers while they're living. Don't wait till they're in the grave. And I'd like to give Harvey his flowers today for 5 great sermons on building the church. Today is almost number 6. I could have entitled this Building a Stronger Church Through Music. A lot of times people think, well, why did he pick out that song today? That song was slow. That song was not exciting. But we pick out the music because it fits the sermon most of the time, or it fits communion, or it fits the mood of the music. We are trying the best we can do to have variety of music in our church. We want to have hymns, and that's why we consistently use the hymn book. We want you to open the hymn book and read the hymn. And we're doing some praise songs mixed in with the hymns. And like last week, we had a wonderful contemporary solo from Ray, and we're trying to mix in the newer contemporary with the hymns. And we can't forget that the hymn book is full of gospel music. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. It's full of spiritual songs. It's full of contemporary music. And in the very back, it has choral and congregational responses. Now, I want to make sure that you all have a hymn book. If you don't have one in your hand, reach around and get yourself a hymn book, because you're going to need a hymn book. If you can read English, you can read a hymn book today. There's 2 things about a hymn that Harvey mentioned several times about his education background in seminary and college. Well, when I attended school back way past Harvey, because he's much older than me, 20 or 30 years after Harvey, but I had a class called hymnology, and we studied about hymns and how they were written. We studied why they were written, the composers, and every song that's in this hymn book, I want you to remember this, is not a hymn. A lot of the songs in here are just gospel songs. They're spirituals, or they're old contemporary music that they took the chorus out and put it in the hymn book. This is called the hymn book. There's a couple up here that I've got that says hymn, a hymn book, a hymnal, and a book of songs. So this book is not all hymns. There's probably as many gospel songs in here, maybe more gospel songs than there are hymns. I want you to look at your first page in your hymn book, hymn number 1. A lot of times people will say turn to page so-and-so, but actually in the hymn book, you say turn to hymn number 1. because sometimes there are two hymns on one page. So it's hymn number 1. Hymn number 1 is a very old hymn, and it definitely, without a shadow of doubt, is a hymn. If you look at the very bottom of the page here, it tells you about the hymn. It says text and music. Now the text is the words to the hymn, and the text is a poem by Henry Van Dyke, no English poet. The music is by a famous composer named Ludwig van Beethoven. The music, if you look to the right side over here, it says Hymn to Joy. Okay, now when we look at the hymn, there's two things about this hymn. Number 1 is the words. Number 2 is the music. Now the music is called the hymn tune. Hymn tune. And the hymn tune is called Hymn to Joy, or we learned it in college, Ode to Joy. And so what Henry Van Dyke has done, he has taken the words to his poem, and he put them to the music of Beethoven. And you all know the tune. Let's sing just the first verse of that, okay? Ready? Joyful. Now you've learned two things about that hymn. You learned who the composer is to the music, and you've learned who wrote the words. Now, remember back in English, back in high school English, you studied poetry. Remember that? Yeah. And you studied something called meter. Remember the word meter? Yeah. Okay, if you look at the very bottom of the page, below where it says Hymn to Joy, you'll see 8787. That's your meter. It tells you, if you can count it on your hands, joyful, joyful, we adore thee. 8. God of glory, Lord of love. 7. Then the next is going to pick up 8, 7, 8, 7, 8, 7. Now you think, well, why are you telling us this? Because we're not really too interested in that. But if you flip the page to page 2, you're going to see something you can do with that hymn with some other words. If you look at page 2, or hymn 2, come thy fount of every blessing. Okay, you see the text is by Robert Robertson. The music is a traditional American melody. So that tells us they don't know who wrote the melody. Somewhere along the line, somebody sang this back and they put it in a book of sacred music in 1813. The hymn tune is called Nettleton. But look at the meter. 8, 7, 8, 7. Come thy fount of every blessing. 8. Tune thy heart to sing thy grace. So what can you do with that? Think about it. You just sang joyful, joyful. What can you do with come thy fount? You can take the words of this, and I can turn back to page 1 and play the music to joyful, joyful, and you can sing come thy fount to the same tune. Let's try it. It's fun.